You can take us wherever you are. It's Magic 107.5, 97.5, the real sound of Atlanta. The number one most listened to show in afternoons in the whole entire state. Anybody else who tells you that, they're lying. They're lying.
Big lies.
They don't have, the White House reach out and say, there's a tour going on. And the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, not only is Marcia Fudge here, but, I'm going to be hosting something that I want to tell you about a little later on. But first of all, welcome to Atlanta.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you.
And we're very happy to have you in the studio. And can you talk about how this whole tour, the purpose and why it's necessary for you guys to go into actual communities and talk about the president's and your agenda?
The tour is necessary because so often we do a lot of work that people don't know we've done. People don't know the fact that we have put in place procedures that would help people buy houses.
Right.
So people say, I can never afford to get my own house. I don't have the down payment. Well, the president is asking for $10 billion in down payment assistance to help you do that. People will say, I don't have any credit. Yeah, you do. If you can pay your rent on time, we're going to assume that you are credit worthy. We're going to assume that you can make a mortgage. Or they'll say, I've got student debt. We'll say, no, we've found a way to recalculate student debt so it does not make you not credit worthy. Or the president can say, we've put $60 billion into broadband and high-speed internet so that young people in our communities that look like me, can send their kids to school virtually because they now have access.
Right.
Or we say that it is important for us to understand that jobs are coming back, that we are training people, that we are spending resources on free 2 years of college education if they will let us do it, and we're taking care of student loan debt up to $20,000. People don't know what we do. So it is my job and those of us in the administration to come out and tell people, and that's why we're here.
And, we were talking before we got on air about some of the issues, and, of course, the phone lines are going to probably light up when I touch on this subject. The fact that the rent issues that we were having not only in the metro but in the state are just out of control with the gouging, and people were just feeling like not only do they have nowhere to go, but they don't have the resources. How would you, address that to people who are listening to the show right now?
I would first say that housing is a crisis across the country.
Right.
There is no place in America today where on minimum wage or even at $15 an hour, you can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. There is nowhere. So housing is a crisis. Homelessness is a crisis in this country because people can't afford to pay their rent. People are being pushed to the streets. So any night in this country, 500,000 people sleep on the streets. And people say, well, why is that a big deal with me? Because even though black people only make up 13% of the population, we make up 40% of the people who sleep on the streets.
Wow.
So there are so many issues that we know we need to address, and we're trying to address them. But as long as there is not enough housing for every single person in this country, we're going to have the problem of high rents.
Right.
Because supply and demand just say if there are not enough houses for the people who need them, people get as much as they can for them. It's just basic economics. Unfortunately, the people who get hit the hardest are the people who can least afford to pay.
We were talking about the difference between old and historical. Where you live in Cleveland, it's a historical community, but down here, the old grandmother's house and the houses they paid $16,000 for that the kids don't want to live in are considered old. How do we do a better job of educating our people, and not just the young people, but generations that have passed on and left these properties that are not only paid for people to hold on to them and not just let somebody come in and buy up the block?
We'll talk about gentrification and then won't go buy a house in that same neighborhood. This is what we do.
Okay.
I mean, some of us know better. We just don't do better. Then there are those who don't understand how important and significant it is for us to continue to keep our neighborhoods. Most predominantly black neighborhoods that are old neighborhoods are in locations that most other people want.
Right.
But so what we do is we allow those houses to go into disrepair.
Right.
Like you said, we say we don't want them. Mm-hmm. We sell them to somebody for not even half of what they're worth just to get rid of them. And then those people build up a neighborhood. So we need to start trying to find ways to build up our own neighborhoods. We do education. We talk to people about what their rights are. We talk to people about how they can get a fair shot at trying to get a home. But the system works against us, too, because we devalue those homes because they're in black neighborhoods. We don't want to lend you money because they're in black neighborhoods, so we continue to redline in certain kinds of communities. And then the people in your own community, your city council people, your mayors, et cetera, don't say to you, don't ever sell that house because it's going to make you money one day.
Right.
But we don't talk about it, and the people who can afford it don't want to hear about it.
Right.
Because they don't have the wherewithal to bring those houses back up to a place where they can afford to live in them. So it becomes a cycle that is hard to get out of. But I would say, if you got a house that grandma owned, don't sell it. Keep it until you can figure out how you can make some money off of it and how you can save your neighborhood.
Right, because what's happening is, and again, just resetting here, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge, is actually in the studio. We're talking about just people that are listening right now. If you have a question, you have a concern, there are resources that you may have that you may not know are in existence. But what we're seeing now is, to your point, is that not only are people going in and buying up the block, but they're also coming in building houses that are way more expensive for the people who decided to stay. So now you may have a McMansion on one side, and then you got a ranch that's 1,600 square feet on the other side, and now those people can't stay, and now they have nowhere to go.
Exactly right, because when the McMansions come in, they've raised the tax base.
Right.
So people who have been around a long time, especially senior citizens, they can't afford to pay the additional taxes.
Right.
Or the upkeep in their houses. And so what we then do, we allow cities to come in and cite you for any little thing that's wrong with your house, and that pushes you out too. So I think it's important that communities start to have the kinds of meetings and gatherings that say to them, this is the value of living in this neighborhood. I live in an all-black neighborhood because I choose to live in one.
Right.
But I know the value of being in a neighborhood that is my neighborhood. That's my cheers. That's
Right.
where I can go and feel very, very comfortable. And I talk to my neighbors about that. And I will help other people if they need help. But we need to get to people in a way that we haven't been in the past. We need to sit down with these homeowners, the ones who grandma left the house to,
Right.
and explain to them why it's important for them to keep them.
When we come back, we're going to take some of your questions and some of your calls. I know we have a lot of people that are listening right now. And I've been very transparent in this fact, Secretary. I moved to a certain neighborhood for my kids and their education. They had no problem selling a house to a black man. Now, buying one that a black man used to live in,
Yeah.
I mean, everything from taking down everything black, get these pictures off the wall,
Right.
hide this stuff up under the bed, and I was totally blown away by it. But then we've seen other instances where people have had one appraiser come in, and it's one price for the black people. And then another appraiser come in, they say, let me let my white friend say this is their house. And it's a difference in the assessment.
Well, let me tell you what, I got something for them. We can talk about that. Because what we did, the president requested that myself and Susan Rice put in place a project that we call PAVE. It's about property valuation. And we know for a fact that communities, that the browner and darker a community becomes, the less they value those properties.
Right.
We also know that when appraisers are done, if you're right, if it's a black household, they will devalue that property only because a black person lived in it.
Correct.
But it is against the law. And one of the things that we are doing is we're enforcing fair housing. That is a part of the role that I play. We have a fair housing office. If you think that somebody has discriminated against you because of the color of your skin, all you need to do is call our fair housing number. And I'm going to give you the number. It's 800-669-9777, 800-669-9777, to file a complaint, because we are doing this every single day, because we know it happens every single day. The system is really designed to hurt communities of color, especially in neighborhoods that are not communities of color, if that makes any sense.
Makes
now.
much sense. When we come back, your questions and, of course, more with Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge. I don't know what other show you're listening to, but she's leaving here going to the airport. It's magic. It is. Magic 107.5, 97.5, the real sound of Atlanta. Ryan Cameron, Uncensored. In the studio, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge. Yeah, here answering your questions, which I knew we'd have a lot of questions. But before we get to the phone calls. So, talk about when you were the national president over at Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated. How is that experience? Because,
compared to this.
no, yeah, not that compared to this, but more along the lines of, because I know I'm hosting, there's a fashion show that's coming April 16th, and it's such a big deal. It's actually at the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. I mean, it is a big, big deal. But y'all are always making moves and doing things that are setting the bar, and I just want to, what is it like to sit in that chair?
I would say it's probably one of the most significant experiences I've ever had, because when you lead leaders,
Right.
you have to think all the time about how to make things better.
Okay.
And when you lead people like that who have been given so much, we have such a big obligation to give back. So you're always thinking about ways to be more involved in your community.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got out of it. And it's hard to, I mean, we all the same here. It's hard to lead a whole lot of people that look like you. And so it is difficult to get everybody on the same page. But we did, and that's what made the difference. We were all pulling in the same direction together and caring about who we were as an institution, as an organization, and as women. And it was powerful.
And with this position, everybody has an end game. What's one of your major goals that you want to accomplish before the day is out?
I want for people to know that government can work for them. And that we are going to do everything we can to make sure that they know we care enough to give it everything we've got. That's my end.
Because so many people are just not positive on government. They don't do nothing. And
Well, I think that if you put the right people in government, they will try. And that's all we can do, is do the best we can. But I want people to know that there is some hope. When you look at the resources we have put into communities over the last 2 years, you can't help but have hope, because we've done an awful lot of good things. Have we changed everything? No. Will we ever change it all? Probably not. But we have changed enough to make people believe that they can have a better life. And that is what my job is.
That's awesome.
We're going to take these phone calls, 44741-1075. Magic, hello?
Yes, how you doing?
How you doing, man? What's up?
All right. I was just calling. I just want to talk to Miss Fudge. Say a few things to Miss Fudge.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, how you doing, Miss Secretary?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I was calling. I'm on Section 8, and I pay a minimal amount of rent, and now they've added all these other utilities to my rent, and I have to pay light and gas to Georgia Power and Atlanta Gas Light. And my rent has went from the $340 to today. I just called. My rent is $853, and I receive Social Security benefits. So my check ain't but a little bit over that. And I was trying to see why people at a certain age, I'm 59, don't receive the what the checks are, the utility checks anymore. They kind of help out with the utility bills.
Let me suggest that you do two things. The number that I gave earlier, I want you to call it as well. But what I want you to do is go to the housing authority that issued that voucher. Tell them I told you to come and see them.
All right.
And ask them what they can do to be helpful. And if they're not helpful, I want you to call the office at the number I gave you and tell me they have not been helpful.
I need that number again, Miss Fudge. Please,
It's 800.
Okay.
569.
Okay.
4287.
4287.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. All right. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
On being the new secretary.
Thank you, man.
All right.
All right, bye-bye. It is Magic 107.5, 97.5, the real sound of Atlanta. Ryan Cameron, Uncensored, for your Monday. Back off the pizza convention, which I'll talk about in a minute. But right now, speaking of the dough, talking about the fact that rent is out of control around the country. And the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge, is in the studio with a lot of people who are calling in asking questions. Magic, hello?
Ryan Cameron.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. What's up, man?
Okay, so Am I going to be able to speak with Madam Secretary?
She's right here, but you got to get to the question because it's a time limit on this thing. They got to get out of here.
Okay, so my question is, how can a black man that has applied, that is a veteran, apply for housing? And I heard Madam Secretary say there are things that are in place where we can help you with the down payment, but you can never get approved because she said the credit and all of that. So where in their assistance can I get the assistance?
The first thing you need to do is use a lender that uses FHA as their mortgage insurer. Because if you get into the FHA system, we have instructed our underwriters to change the way that we underwrite mortgages. And that goes back to the things I talked about before, how we assist with down payments, how we make sure that we show that you are credit worthy, and how we deal with student loan debt. And in some instances, when people are trying to save their homes, we have created a project so that they can keep a 40-year mortgage as opposed to a 30-year mortgage, so that we can extend out their payments, reduce them, and keep them in their homes. But make sure, and if you have any question at all, I want you to call this number, 800-569-4287. That's 800-569-4287. It's our housing counseling number. Tell them what your issue is, and they will direct you to the right people.
Ma'am, that number by me one more time. I can write it. 800
569
569
4287.
4287. Thank you
got
so
it.
much for your information, ma'am. And we needed a voice of that to speak and let us know what we can reach out and are able to get.
It's my pleasure. I work for you. I just want to help.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Peace. All right, we got more coming up, including the Ryan Report and a facility, an institution, has told everybody to work from home until Wednesday. And when I tell you, they're not working from home because they need to work from home. They're working from home because something about to drop.
Oh, jeez.
Coming up inside the Ryan Report. And I told you all, in Atlanta, Judge Earl Glanville was my divorce attorney.
Right.
That is the most no-nonsense judge in the court. And yet, somebody on jury duty decided to do something so stupid, they must not listen to the show. They must be listening to V or something. They got to be listening to V. Because for them to do this, they got to be crazy. They got to be listening to somebody else. They got to be listening to Star. Some ain't right. I'll tell you what they did that nobody would ever do in this court. After you warned them to not do this.
Oh, you got warned?
Judge Glanville warned you. Don't do this, and then they did it. You can play golf. You can play basketball. You can't play Judge Glanville, man. We got more coming up with Madam Secretary in a minute. It's Magic. Magic 107.5, 97.5, the real sound of Atlanta. More of your questions, 447-411-1075. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge, is in the studio. When you go back to Pennsylvania Avenue, what would you like your final report to be? What that you have accomplished as you go into these different communities to talk about your job?
I want to be able to say to the president and vice president that I have come to communities that have great need, and they need for us to continue to do the work that they have allowed us to start to do. We have a long way to go, but I do know that we can get to a place where we can help most people in need. So I'm going to ask them to continue to have the kind of confidence in us that we can continue to do the job that they want us to do, and I believe that we can do it.
So as we wrap up here, and my audience always is going to hold me accountable for anything that I ask or have not asked. In the next 24 hours, we will have a lot of things to have unpacked about potential possibilities of a lot of different things. Even in my own building, they have said, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know how people are going to handle the situations of what may unfold. When you look at being in public policy and the things that you're responsible for, did you ever think that you would have to be cognizant of what was going on from past administrations?
No, but you come in and you find out what didn't happen, and so you try the best to try to make up as you're going.
Right.
So there was a lot that I think could have been done, but we're now doing it.
Okay.
So I don't want to look back. I want to look forward, and I want to look forward because the people who need our help now, and they can't worry about what happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They're looking at today and tomorrow.
Right. I appreciate the time. I appreciate you. You know, I followed you guys motorcade in. I did. You know, all I know is it was a state patrol, and I saw another car, and I guess you were in the Suburban. But I just, you know, I'm black. I just fell right on in. I was like, you know,
try to get them lights.
Everybody moving out of the way.
Right.
We going to the same place, I think.
I'm gonna get this light too.
So we appreciate the time, and we look forward to seeing you again. We got a chance to do our show from the White House last year, actually in the War Room. So we were actually in the building. I think we were the first show ever to do a whole entire show there. But hopefully we'll get reinvited and we could reconvene because I think you and I laugh at the same jokes. I don't know. I mean, it could be a Crimson. It could be a Crimson thing. I don't know, but I think we laugh at the same jokes.
That was a Kappa sweetheart too. You know?
What? I knew. All right.
Sweetheart.
All right. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We got more coming up. It's Magic 107.5, 97.5, The Real Sound of Atlanta.